Greetings and welcome to the Art of Rising, where we are exploring leadership and conscious visionaries leading the world. We are here with a powerful sister. We've had her on here before, and we're so super psyched to have her back again. Sister, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're living and what you're doing with yourself these days.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be back. Thank you. Thank you. So, hey, everybody, Jill Sitnick. I am an advocate for MDMA therapy for PTSD because in my late 40s, I was diagnosed with PTSD due to childhood trauma. And I went through MDMA therapy for PTSD underground. And after 3 MDMA journeys with my therapist and guide over the course of a year, I then no longer qualified for a PTSD diagnosis. Since then, I have written 2 books. I have an educational YouTube channel to help people understand what this therapy is, because me and like everybody else assumed the FDA was going to approve this therapy in August 2024, and instead they delayed it. So I advocate for that therapy. I know it's going to be available at some point, and I think it can help millions and millions of people. And that's usually what I chat about on podcasts. I think since healing that PTSD, I have continued to work on my trauma. I had like 19 years of neglect and abuse to kind of work through. Most people call that CPTSD or complex PTSD. And I have done a lot of traveling and a lot of medicine work with a variety of medicines and a variety of modalities to understand how they work with trauma. And that has all culminated in, I have just very recently opened up a coaching practice. And I'm just very excited to continue to help people understand when this medicine is appropriate, when it's not, what it can do, what it can't do. And, I'd love these opportunities like you're giving me now to have these kind of conversations. So
Of course, of course. I mean, a lot of these things come with all of this baggage. That's why I was reading somewhere where LSD comes with all of this emotional baggage and this history, where psilocybin doesn't have so much. So it looked like it would be much more readily accepted and approved by the powers that be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also there's a little bit of, it's a mushroom. It grows out of the ground versus LSD and,
It's a
synthetic
chemical.
and yada,
Right,
yada,
right.
yada.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It has that
and
long.
yeah. And, it's a little bit easier, I think, in my opinion, it's a little bit easier to dose psilocybin versus you have to really know what you're doing with LSD to get a correct dose and know who you're working with. So I think there's an easier pathway. I mean, Oregon and Colorado are doing so much decriminalization and specific work with psilocybin. So I think you're right. Your gut told you.
Yes. So, and also, the PTSD is post-traumatic
Stress disorder.
stress disorder. Thank you. But you also mentioned CPTSD. So if you could give me like a brief
Yeah.
difference between the two.
You know what? This comes up a lot because it's not only a definition of what the DSM classifies, it's also a difference in how I was dealing with medicine. So let me just preface. When I was diagnosed with PTSD, I had lost my partner of over 20 years. Everything on the surface looked great. I was a corporate girl, but ultimately I had never dealt with any of the trauma from childhood because I didn't have any understanding of trauma. In my mind, I just had a bad childhood. So the PTSD symptoms that I had, extreme hypervigilance. I don't even know if you should add extreme to hypervigilance because hypervigilance.
It's already.
I was an English teacher. I can't believe I just did that. But hypervigilance, your body is in constant uproar, like you're on the edge of a cliff. And ultimately, I was becoming more and more suicidal because with all of the safety nets I had in place, because of a very disruptive childhood, if I still couldn't feel safe in my body, like how do you feel safe if you're on the edge of a cliff and you've got like a 3-inch shelf? It's hard to feel comfortable. So that's kind of how it was. And just getting increasingly frustrated. You're never going to win the race. You're never going to get to the finish line. I'm always going to feel like that. And that's one of the reasons why PTSD leads people to end their lives, because they just don't feel in their bodies that there's a way to get beyond that. MDMA specifically, that particular psychedelic for PTSD treatment, can be effective for so many people because MDMA is an empathogen. It doesn't give you the beautiful visuals. It is a social kind of psychedelic, which is why it's used at college parties and raves.
The clubs, yeah.
The clubs.
Yeah.
Well, in a therapeutic environment, MDMA calms the body's fear enough for the mind to say, what is causing this fear? What is getting us so upset? And you can finally kind of approach things that are super scary. So what I say to people all the time is that there's a reason why MDMA is used so effectively when someone is in a crisis state of PTSD. At the end of my third journey, about a month after my third journey, I no longer qualified for that PTSD diagnosis because I was no longer suicidal. I understood where the fear came from. I understood I had a future. With that said, I have continued to work on myself because I was stuck with my father for 19 years. My father, lots of people read my book and they think he was a sociopath. So, I don't know. I know he was a narcissist. And so I knew that some of my responses, my internal triggers, my inability to think through because my body would still get really, really hyper in certain situations, that's complex PTSD. That you might not be able to go back to a specific time in your childhood and say that was the trauma that caused this CPTSD because it's insidious. It's just constant. And that's where you have lots of people saying that different psychedelics work for complex CPTSD. And I have to agree with them. I think I've worked with a lot of different medicines to understand how they work with the trauma. And, once you're out of that crisis, in my opinion, this is my opinion, once you're out of that crisis state of PTSD, then I think the other medicines that might be a little bit more palatable or more enjoyable or more interesting or more available can really open up. I'm just a real huge proponent that if anyone's in a crisis state, uh, get with a therapist, do the normal stuff, antidepressants, da da da. And if you're still in that state, eventually when MDMA therapy becomes available, that's probably the route to go.
Right. But then how is it when you come out of some of these altered states? What would you say is one of the hardest things that people face? Because for myself, it was quite traumatic. I also did experience some things, and coming back to this life, I was like, this shit is crazy around here. Like I thought it was all right. Like you guys are, yeah. So please, if you could tell me.
Well, one of the tough parts to explain to people about using psychedelics for a therapeutic use or for a self-growth use is that I'm not going to say that they're all bad trips, like you're not going to have, aliens and da da da. But people will define them as bad because, and this is the tough part, very often you have to feel the emotions or the feelings you had at the time of a trauma to recognize them, to work through them, to understand them. And so
Mm,
I will very often have people come to me. It's happened. 3 people actually very recently have come and they've said, I just had the worst experience on XYZ medicine. And when we start to dive into it, it's because, hey, I went back to when I was 10 and XYZ happened to me. And so when you're working, a lot of people also come out of a journey like it's very disjointed. They have got a lot of stuff happening. And that's because their system is kind of processing some older situations. The more work you do, the more focused the journeys get. But in the very beginning, they can be very, very disruptive because you've got a lot of emotions kind of coming up. And so I think that's the challenge too. It's very hard to explain to people the feelings you felt when you were 3 years old of terror, of fear, of abandonment. You're probably going to feel in your body some of those emotions to work through it.
Mm.
And, that's one of the sometimes why people only do 1 or 2 journeys and they stop because they're like,
Mm.
"This is not fun."
Right, right. Yeah, this shit is work. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, you want to be happy. You want to feel joy. Joy, not happiness, joy.
Right.
It's a lot. And
Yeah.
oftentimes when you get all of these emotions that come into you, like you don't know what to do. And that's where someone like yourself comes in, where that preparation comes in. You need to be some people like, oh, just go in, I just let me just try it, like you were trying on a pair of shoes. I'm like, bro, it's not like that, bro. Just want to jump in and jump out, see how the water feels, no.
That would be like, "Hey, I'm just gonna jump into a marathon.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
I'm just gonna
Yeah,
jump in. I'm just gonna see what 30 miles is like with,
yeah, yeah,
my
yeah, yeah, and
typical
slippers, yeah,
sneakers."
yeah.
Yeah, if you in my opinion, if you're going to use a psychedelic experience for therapy or self-growth, prepare, get people set and setting, the mindset, where it's going to be. I cannot emphasize enough. I was with my trusted therapist and her mentor who was a medical doctor. And then since then, whomever I have worked with, I have made sure I vetted them to my satisfaction. So I knew what I wanted to work on. I investigated with whom I was going to do that work, primarily psychedelic tourism. And I went into the experience knowing what to do. I was very careful in terms of my dose. I knew what my body could handle in terms of my dosing. I didn't feel any sort of peer pressure. I couldn't care less if you're doing XYD. This is my thing. So preparation, knowing who you're with, knowing what your goals are, and having almost an exit plan after. People will go do a psychedelic journey and like the next day they'll go back to work. If you're really serious about this as a healing modality, then look into the neuroplasticity that psychedelics allow and give yourself the couple of days after to reinforce to reinforce the new thought pattern that you want, to understand what kind of comes up. Oh, I didn't realize that childhood memory actually meant XYZ. You wouldn't run a marathon and like the next day go run another marathon. You would take some breaks. So kind of the common sense we have around normal things that we do, people need to realize that common sense also comes to this kind of experience. Does that help? I hope I didn't
Yeah,
ramble too much.
yeah. No, no, that's great because there's something should be said about that integration part too. So I was wondering, how about for yourself personally? You've experienced some of these things, and perhaps you could tell us, was there something that you saw or experienced and felt that it was the integration that really brought it and cleared it up for you, that you could really see, like, ah, yes.
S Every single time. Every
Mm,
single time. So the illusion is that with psychedelic healing that everything gets done during the journey. Now, people might feel like they had 10 years of therapy in 8 hours because they had an amazingly enlightening LSD journey. I know that happened with me. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this journey, I had a very specific goal." The medicine took me right to the part in my childhood I needed to deal with, and I actually had memories that I couldn't consciously remember. I had to work through them during the journey. The integration, the days after were fascinating because I had a very specific feeling and an image of my mother kind of walking with me as a child and closing the closet door on that particular incident. It was a relatively violent incident. And the imagery, and I love using my imagination. So I'm just going to say right now, this is my imagination at work, but it's the neuroplasticity of this is the new way of thinking. And the couple of days afterward, I just had this image of my mother taking me as a child and just closing this door. And the medicine was kind of saying, we're done with this. You've processed it. You don't have to go back to this anymore. So, and so that integration, when I now kind of think of that particular, it was basically I saw my mother after she had shot herself in the bathroom. Um, I literally no longer have that memory. The memory that I have is my mother closing a door and taking my hand and walking me away. And what's really important for anyone who says, oh my gosh, that's crazy, you need to remember we see life through perspective. You can totally change your perspective on anything. Think about something you didn't like as a taste as a child, and now you like it as an adult. A song you couldn't stand, now you like it. You have an understanding of someone's background, and you change your perspective on that. It's literally about how we see things. And now I see that memory as my mother saying, let's walk away from that. Let's take care of that little bit. But I think that one's one of the most, it might be the most difficult for your listeners to understand if they haven't worked with psychedelics, but it was one of the most powerful experiences I had.
That's quite powerful, and I know the imagination is quite intense when it comes to some of these things. We truly are the masters of our own ship. We're the captain. Yeah, we
Yeah.
are the one. We're fueling it, and at the same time, we're directing it too. But we allow other people and other events take place. And for me, that was a hard one, But
Yeah.
how about how do you help other people when they do experience some of these things and they're painful and they don't want to? They were like, look, like you mentioned before, like, wow, that was pretty wild, but I'm not doing that again. Why? Because I was in the third grade with Miss McGillicuddy again. So how do you help them? How do you guide them?
Well, usually people come to me when there has been, because I don't deliver medicine. People come to me when they're like, I've had this experience and I don't know how to unpack it. And they don't use that language, but that's really what it comes down to. And one of the best strategies, and everybody get your pens and pencils, I'm about to give this to you. One of the best strategies that my therapist used with me was pay attention to the body. That we think it's all up here. So, for instance, I'll have a coaching client say, I'm really upset about this house. I'm just going to use the house. I'm really upset about the house for whatever reason, and they talked about it in their journey, and something with the house happened, and the house keeps coming up. Here's where it gets important. I'll then stop the client and say, okay, I'm hearing this house is important. Can we do a quick body scan? And can you tell me in your body where you're feeling this? And it can be anywhere. A lot of times I'll get back of the neck. Sometimes I'll get throat. Sometimes I get chest. Sometimes I get belly. And then here's the strategy that the first time my therapist did it to me, I thought she was crazy, but I'm going to tell you right now, it works. Ask your body what's going on. So we're talking about the house. We take a moment to do a body scan. Let's say the client's stomach is very upset. Okay, what is your stomach saying? Why is it upset? What signal is it giving you? And let's say that stomach is giving, I'm scared. I'm feeling fear. I'm scared. Okay. And then if you're familiar with internal family systems, which is all about parts work, or if you're just a plain old English teacher like me and, personification, you can then ask that stomach disruption to talk to you. Well, okay, you're feeling fear. Why? What comes up? And then I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, a childhood memory comes up. And so maybe it's something like 5 years old, the child got thrown out of a house. And it makes a lot of sense. So I'll really coach clients to pay attention to their body so that they don't need me to do it with them. A lot of times, like I still maintain my therapeutic relationship. Sometimes I need my therapist there because sometimes something's really scary. So it's not like I say you can't work with me any longer once I teach you this technique. It's more about, here's a pretty standard technique to start to understand where the trauma is, because our subconscious sometimes talks to us in a very, very interesting way. So that's kind of how I deal with it. I mean, the other side is if I've got somebody who's like, I saw my father beating me during the journey, well, then we'll go right to that memory. So we either go right there or we kind of go in through the body, but those are the strategies that I find work
Mm.
very
It-
efficiently for me and for my
mm.
clients. So there you
It-
go, everybody. Write that one down.
Write that one down. That was gold right there. You're dropping the jewels today, Jill. Appreciate you. And I also do know that these waters are very difficult to navigate. Like for me, I needed help. I needed deep help. So I found something on the internet called ayahuasca. I couldn't even pronounce it.
Yep.
And after studying it for a year, you
Yep.
see, because I really looked into like what does it do to your body, to your mind, like then I tried to find people who had did it, and I didn't until I did find the one person happened to be on vacation in Egypt and found the one guy, and then he suggested a few places in Peru, and
Yeah.
we went to the Amazon and these are people who have experience doing these things, right? But in my research I had learned that normal people like me and you didn't take ayahuasca. No, it was the
It was
curandero. He
shamans.
was the one who drank it, and he looked at you and he saw your aura and all of these energies, and then he told you what to do to
Right.
go on forward and take different herbs, because in the Amazon there's thousands and thousands of different plants you can take for multiple types of things, but ayahuasca just happens to be a master plant,
Yep.
right? So, but nowadays, people, humans with their own, thoughts, oh, we could drink it too, but then they're like, I don't know, I lost myself, So that's really my question there, right? Have you come across people who have lost themselves in some of these things where they're trying to find out and sift through some stuff, and then they end up like, now they're lost? No.
The I think my experience, because people come to me more clinically or more coaching mindset, the trend that I've seen with a couple of people is the experience was too scary.
Mm.
And instead of not having kind of a by not okay, I apologize. Hold on.
It's okay. It's a tough one.
With
I know, because it's they're coming to you already with this mindset like, hey, I need help with this because I'm supposed to
I
help me.
already did XYZ.
Right. Because
Yeah,
that happened to me. I was like, I thought this shit was supposed to help me. Like when I came back, I was like a wreck. And then
yeah.
I was missing that. I was missing that integration coach, and
Support.
they didn't provide that. And
Yes.
I was one in a group of other people. Like we're friends for life now. It's like
Yeah.
going through Vietnam. Like like we're not gonna forget each other, but we help each other, and we did
Yeah.
help each other through it, man. Because we was like, what the hell was that?
That what the hell is that is a great yes, let's let's take that sentence, because if you leave, what I have seen in my little slice of the world is, what the hell was that? That's too hard for me to deal with. I don't want to poke that bear anymore. I don't understand why that all happened, and I don't understand why it didn't get healed in that journey. I don't understand why the journey didn't make me feel XYZ. When the reality is, um, to give folks an analogy, and this came from Robert Carhart Harris. I like to adjust it a little bit. He likes to say that, your brain is a ski slope that has grooves in it because the skiers keep skiing on the same grooves. But I'm not a skier. Like, they keep skiing in the same area, so it really becomes entrenched. I like to say the psychedelic melts all the snow, and then your integration is new snow coming down, and you get to guide how you want the new way to go down the mountain.
Mm.
And so if the top of the mountain is really scary,
Mhm.
like coming out of a psychedelic journey you didn't really understand,
Mhm.
then meet with somebody, a therapist, a coach, a trusted friend, somebody in clergy, like someone that can give you a real solid perspective and help you
Mhm.
navigate making your own grooves down the mountain. The people who I sometimes run into, they're stuck on the top of that mountain and the snow just falls, and they don't consciously make different grooves.
Mm.
And so they're just used to the same pattern, and the same grooves get made again.
Yeah, then it feels uncomfortable because you're like, I've been down this one before,
And
but
it didn't
I
change anything.
changed. I saw a new, fresh note right over there. Like I could have, yeah. And then they
Yeah.
need to be a little more guided. Like, yeah, you might want to.
If I ski the same way I did before, like, maybe you need a different
Mm.
ski coach.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Try it. And I talk to people about that when they go, I don't need a coach or like that. I go, listen, think about high level athletes, right? People who perform at the toppest
Yeah.
field of their profession. What do they have?
Multiple
Coaches or
coaches, probably.
multiple
Right.
food, health, physical, yeah. So
Yeah.
get yourself someone who knows what they're talking about. And yeah, they'd be like, oh, but I can't afford it. How could you not afford it? You know?
Well, again, if you're gonna train for the marathon, but you're gonna
Yeah,
get, shoes that don't have that inexpensive
yeah,
shoes that don't
yeah,
have the
yes,
support,
yeah.
what are you doing?
Slippers, yeah, yeah. Chanclas, like we say in Spanish.
Oh,
Chanclas, yeah.
I was trying to think I was trying to think of a brand, and
Yeah,
I'm like, "No, I
Puerto
don't want it
Rican,
like,
yeah.
just like sneakers that don't have arch support for
Yeah.
me."
Oh my God. Yeah. It can be difficult. But how about, some of the misconceptions when people come to you, right? I'm sure like they've looked into you and they want to, okay, they heard about you through somebody because that's word of mouth is the best advertisement. Right. But what is some of the misconceptions that they'll come in with you and they'll be like, oh, listen, you're going to fix this, right? Right, lady? You're going to, or do they come to you like that? Or they'd be like, or they come with that face, like, let me hear what you got to say.
Actually, you know what's interesting is that, I made my YouTube channel, it's free information. I made
Mm,
it to catalog the healing journey, to explain stuff.
mm,
And I think sometimes people see the Jill on those videos, and they
mm,
have a hard time
mm,
seeing the Jill who was in tears and was struggling and was, couldn't wait for her therapy appointment and was scared to death. Like, you're seeing the Instagram reel, you're seeing the after.
mm,
And so I've had two people actually kind of say, well, in video, boom, 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 that's what I want to have happen to me.
mm.
And I'm like, well, that was after 9 months of weekly therapy and two therapeutic journeys already. And, you know, um, I think that's the biggest challenge. It's really hard for me in the videos because I'm so put together now. And trust me, nobody would have watched a video back then.
Right,
I'm
right.
rambling, like,
Yeah, right, mm,
so that's the biggest challenge I have right now is that,
mm, mm,
don't look at the video where I talk about a hippie flip with psilocybin and MDMA.
mm.
That was after like 10 months of intensive therapeutic work. That was
Right,
not,
right,
"Hey, I'm gonna do that next week."
right, right. Yeah, yeah. I'm not busy. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I've got a free afternoon.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest challenge I face.
Mm,
I'll often get people, and I'm always going to be very biased towards the therapeutic route if you really
mm,
want support to get things done. And some people, they don't hear the 9 months, they don't hear the full year, they don't hear
mm,
that I'm still
mm.
in my therapeutic relationship. They hear, oh, she did a hippie flip, and this is what happened.
Right, right.
That's the biggest challenge I face. If I could somehow figure out a way
Yeah.
to communicate it more effectively. I constantly try to
Mm,
communicate it more effectively. The stereotype around psychedelics for me, I'm Generation X,
mm,
it was egg in the frying pan.
mm.
So it wasn't until I went and looked at the clinical data that I said yes to my therapist. When she first suggested it, I actually said
Mm,
no.
mm,
So let's just make sure everybody who's listening understands that the dosage is super. There's actually a phrase, and I forget the phrase. But
mm,
dosage is super, super important.
mhm,
And whatever you're on already is super, super important. And
mhm.
any diagnosis you have. So, like, if I have a history of schizophrenia, absolutely, I'm gonna stay away from psychedelics. If
Right.
I have a history of cardiac issues, I'm gonna stay away from MDMA. If
Mm,
I have liver issues and heart issues, I'm gonna stay away
mhm,
from iboga. Like,
mhm, mm,
the if people actually research their health, what the psychedelic does, and the appropriate dosage
Mhm.
in a structured environment,
Mhm.
the chances of bad things happening
Mhm.
reduce
Yep,
dramatically.
dramatically. Mhm,
But if
mhm.
you're gonna go to a party and you're just gonna pop 3 pills that somebody hands you.
Right, yeah, yeah, I know, yeah, I love that thing in those concerts, the rave, gatherings, right, where they have where they
The
can
tests.
test your MDM, like, "Oh, of cour come on.
Yes.
Oh, it's
They
against
also
the
have
law?"
signs about not drinking too much water. Like, that's what
Mm, you
people
see?
drink way too much water when they're at raves with
Right,
MDMA, da,
it
da, da,
gets you hydrated and stuff like that, your heart's racing, you start drinking it, yeah, yeah, and then you drown, yeah,
and you
yeah,
drown.
you're right.
Yeah. You
Mhm.
can go to clinicaltrials.gov. There's
Mm,
over 200 clinical trials. You can do an internet search for psychedelic clinical trials. You can ironically do an investment search. What pharmaceutical companies are doing psychedelic research right now? I mean, it's
mm,
estimated to be $1 billion industry in a couple of years.
oof,
So finding the research or getting on mailing lists to try a clinical trial.
mhm,
Canadians, there's actually a psilocybin trial where you can join if you pay for it. Like, it's
mm,
citizen clinical trials. I mean,
mm,
so
mm.
it's really one internet search away. This is not really niche anymore.
Right, right. I always loved that documentary, The God Particle on Netflix. That was one of the ones that opened my eyes on
Yeah.
the dimethyltryptamine,
Yep.
and what I forgot the guy's name. Uh,
Oh, I'm horrendous with names.
Yeah, he was the
Oh,
one who was
Stannis.
doing. Yeah,
The
yeah,
mushroom guy.
he was doing no, he was doing the clinical trials with the dimethyltryptamine. He was injecting people in these laboratory settings,
Oh, then I have the wrong
and
name then. Okay.
yeah, but that gentleman, he had lifted some of the ban after like 50 years of they wouldn't touch the stuff, no trials, no nothing. But he was the one that gave him permission to do it, and
Mhm.
they were in a clinical trial. You're in there with a medical doctor, all that, like a nurse, everything, and they were
Been
intravenously
screened.
giving people liquid dimethyltryptamine. And they
Mm.
said that they was like they opened their eyes. They could see that they were in the room with the people. But they closed. Man, they was somewhere else. And I was like, where can I sign up for this?
You'd be shocked. I tell people all the time, set up a Google alert, because
Mm,
individual
mm,
companies, it's hard to kind of know if you're not following them, then how would you know they're running clinical trials? So set
mm.
up a Google alert if you want to be part of a clinical trial.
Yeah, yeah. It's super, super important, and I think that it's helping people in a great way. And I'm glad that you're doing stuff like this because it's much needed, especially in our society, because it's pretty crazy. But I was thinking about you and some of this work that you're doing. It's
Mhm.
actually spiritual work, right? I mean, because you would think like it's no, it's physical. No, it's not. It's deeper than that, man. You someone's consciousness. Where do you buy consciousness? How do you bottle I'm sure they're working on it actually right now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They want to put it in a machine. Oh, it's crazy. But anyway, like it's your own personal thing. Like we're encased in this flesh and bone
Yep.
thing here, but we're not our
Well,
face, we're not our height, we're not our body, right? That's one of the yoga mantras. I'm not the body. I'm not these things that you see in front of you. But you're doing the spiritual work. Do you see it like that first of all? And then the second one is, how do you protect yourself in these types of areas? Because I've been in some of these situations and I come home like I could feel it on me. It's like heavy, man. So
you mean working with people?
working with
Oh,
people,
okay.
and this is
Okay.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
definitely.
All right.
Mhm.
So, funny story is that when people would say to me, well, are you having any spiritual experiences and things of that sort? I'd be like, no, it's pretty much all just healing stuff. That would be because there have been multiple journeys where, to my perception, my I had on my father's side, my grandmother had like a bunch of sisters and brothers. So many of them, I don't even know all of them, to be honest with you. I only knew like a handful. And one of the funniest stories I have is that in the Mexican jungle with a particular substance. I crossed over and my aunts were there, and this, look at the hand I'm getting. This is the hand I got. We're
Mm.
talking to you right now. Da, 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 da. And I came out of that saying, "Oh, I've just healed a bunch of trauma. Oh, I've got a lot of things to think about." It didn't even occur to me that I just had a spiritual experience, because to me, I was like the little kid getting yelled at by my aunts to, shape up, ship up, da, 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 this is what you need to work on. And when I was telling some friends, they were like, "You do realize you're talking about dead people?" And I went, "Oh." So I think what's interesting is that I've had multiple spiritual experiences. I've always couched it in they're helping me heal something. And so I just kind of appreciate, and plus sometimes I'm like, I'm going to do a journey. I don't know who's going to stop in and say hi.
Right, 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 right. Exactly.
I have never. I think it's really interesting. I think it depends on your religious beliefs, your spiritual background, what you're going to see, and how you're going to interpret it. Again, I interpreted it as my family just kind of stopping in and saying hi and putting me the right way, kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, when people come to me very confused, they can lead to some heavy sessions. That's your second question. Like, how do you kind of handle the energy? And it's very much about grounding the client. It's very much about the client knowing you're there. The client is safe. The client can share. There's nothing the client can tell me about a journey that I'm going to be like horrified about, because I've been through lots of journeys, and hey, my aunts are there to like yell at me, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So I think the heaviness sometimes comes from the memories and the conversation. I mean, especially when you hear the devastation that childhood sexual abuse does. Those things are very, very challenging. I think for me, I then usually have to exercise. I usually have to shake that energy in some way, shape, or form, because it doesn't do a client any good if I'm holding on to something from another client. And I think it's important that when you're working with someone that you're with them. And there's no real, I mean, obviously there's a barrier because usually it's Zoom and things of that sort, but emotionally you're with them. And I've just had to really work on, I just heard some heavy stuff and I helped a client work through and understand. And now I've got to move some energy to kind of move past that. And to be honest with you, it's a strategy I've used through my own integration too. Walking is one of my best integration strategies and
Mm.
suggestions for people. So that's how I handle the heaviness that comes through. And what a gift. What a gift that people trust me enough and are comfortable enough to release some of that. So
Mhm.
I want to make sure that I'm a safe landing place for them. And I get rid of the energy through walking or exercise or something of that sort.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Yeah, because it's a whole trust thing. It's trust, and people that I've been with too. It's that sort of thing, and it's an honor. It's a powerful thing, like to be part of someone's healing, and for them to trust you that much. Like, here, let me take off my consciousness and put it in your hands. Here, take care of it.
Yeah,
They trust you
help me
enough.
understand this. Yeah.
Yep, it's quite powerful.
Yeah.
And I always remember that one guy was in a ceremony, and there was some afterwards talking after and sharing, and he let out this information about this painful thing coming up as a kid. I kid you not, Jill. It was like he froze the air molecules in the room. Everything just went, eh.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like that. It was like, whoa, I thought I had problems and issues, or the other guy was like looking at me like I thought I was got it hard. And yeah, it was wow. But such healing. He was able to let that out, and we were able
Release.
to administer to him different energy moving techniques. And then he's so grateful. Like, thank you so much. I've been walking around with that
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
my chest. Like, it affects every part of my life, my relationships, my job, my money, my health, my
Yeah.
that.
Oh, and for the listeners, what's super powerful with that, it's a beautiful story. the community, the connection. Most of our trauma comes from, and by the way, there's no ladder of trauma. Everybody's got trauma. Comes from the idea that we had some sort of emotional response that was not addressed. And so we've held on to it. And when we're in ceremony, and ceremony means you're working with other people who are also taking medicine with some facilitators in whatever environment, whether it's a therapeutic, it's in the middle of the Mexican jungle, it's in Peru. When you're in ceremony with other people and you can release and get support for those emotions, that's super. It's like the whipped cream and the cherry on the sundae. Like it
Right.
just adds that extra. Like you can absolutely do a journey by yourself. Absolutely. I'm going to say, but it's
Mhm.
going to be more healing if you have somebody there or someone immediately after that you can start to process those emotions with, because we heal in community.
Mm, that's powerful. Our ancestors, that's the way they did it.
Yes.
It was the town, it was the village, it was
Whole
we
group.
were together, whole group, everybody came together. Now everything's like, go for yours, do your own, get yours. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
alone
we need
here.
to get back
Yeah.
way more community. And it is funny, to people with whom I've journeyed, like, yeah, I could pick
Mhm.
up the phone right now and call. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Same here. Like I told you, we met some people in the jungle. We're friends for life. Australia, UK, Ireland, Canada. Like they've been to my place many times, and we traveled together. And yes, you don't forget those people.
You don't.
They're there. It's quite intense, and it's super helpful too. Like I do suggest it for many people. But before I go further, I did want to mention that it was Dr. Rick Straussman is
Oh,
the
you found it.
gentleman,
Okay.
right? And it's called the Spirit Molecule, DMT, the Spirit Molecule. That's the one on Netflix. Which, yeah,
As soon as you said God molecule, and then I said
yeah,
stamets, I was
yeah,
like, that's
yeah.
not right.
It's the
Yeah.
spirit. Yeah, yeah. So it's super helpful. But lots of these medicines, because that's a beautiful name for them, right? Because we're all in need of some healing.
Yeah.
And how do you heal somebody with medicine,
With
right?
medicine.
So lots of these medicines are here to help people, and it has helped people throughout. Like if you know some big names, right?
Oh, yeah.
The guy who did the Apple computer, or right, I forget his name. He's a big name, but
Steve
yeah,
Jobs.
yeah,
Yep.
Steve Jobs, yeah.
Yep.
The guy who did the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, too. People don't
Yeah,
know
I
that. I
know
was
the
talking to some
irony there.
guy. He
Yep.
was work. He's big time AA. He
Yeah.
swears like a religion. He don't
Yep.
want to hear about. I mean, he's a little bit more open now that he knows that plant medicines do heal people, and he knows that healing can come in any form. But he's like a Puritist, right? When the AA. But I told him that, the guy who created that, he was
Came
doing
up with the idea
LSD,
on an LSD
yeah,
journey.
and
Yeah.
that helped him, and he didn't know. I had to send him links and everything. I said, bro,
Yeah.
open your cabeza, man. These things be open. This it's time already. Let it go. You know.
It's funny. I was just talking to an addiction counselor yesterday,
Mhm.
um, and I had as many questions for that person as that person had for me.
Mhm.
And the mind shift for folks who work in addiction work, any substance can be addictive. And
Mhm.
therefore, the concept of psychedelics is something that
That
traditionally they stay away from.
Mhm.
And then when they start to do some research about psilocybin, and it stops working if you take a bunch of it, and it's really hard to get addicted to MDMA because you don't feel great if you take
Right,
a ton of it.
right,
Once
right,
they start seeing, not that some personality can't become addicted to something,
right.
absolutely.
Mhm.
But traditionally, these particular especially when used with intention and appropriate dosing, they don't have an addictive an addictive profile is what I wanted
Right.
to say.
Yeah, they're anti-addiction.
They
That's what I
are.
usually say. Yeah, they're anti-addiction because it helped me.
Yeah.
My journey has to do with that and substances and also alcohol. Alcohol was the big one because the substance,
Mm,
after 2 trips in the emergency room, you kind of get the idea. Okay, this is not going to end
had to
well.
stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was the alcohol that is so seamlessly placed into our society that, we just think it's the norm. Like, yeah, I could go right now with the block and get some of that poison, and it's the spirit. That's why this is wine and spirits, because alcohol is the root word comes from Arabic argul, and they know that it's a spirit, it's an entity that takes over your body. And there I was with this thing sitting in the pit of my stomach, right here, my solar plex. I didn't know what it was. I was
Oh,
like, what the fuck is this? Like, yeah, it's alcohol, bro. That's what it is. Because the only thing that took it away was taking a few drinks.
yeah.
But it was that plant medicine that helped me, that showed me. It showed me. I
Yeah.
seen it and I felt it and I heard it and I knew it. They call it a knowing. You received a knowing. And that's what I received. That was to help me, break free from that. It was the knowing that if you keep going, this movie is not going to end well for you. So I was like, what?
Is that what the medicine told you?
And
Ah,
there I was. Yeah, my wife was there, and I was. It was a whole thing. I was. Just, get rid of that liquor from the house. Throw it out. Throw it out. And she was just
yeah,
emptying all the bottles in the sink, and. But it helped me. It was. I was willing to do anything, Jill.
yeah,
Anything. I was trying many things. That was just one of something else. That's like I went off this ride, bro. It was like,
yes, yeah.
yeah, I didn't know who
Psilocybin
to
and
trust.
iboga are great for addiction. Iboga a little bit more for opioid because it
Mm,
addresses the opioid receptors in the brain. But for people who have a solid addiction to alcohol, psilocybin,
mhm,
solid
mhm,
addiction to opioids, iboga. Uh,
mhm,
Doing a
mhm,
ton of research in Texas, of all places,
mm.
on iboga and ibogaine. Finally,
Okay.
I mean, my dream would be if any opioid settlement money would go to researching
Mm.
iboga. The irony is that it's already being used outside of the United States. Like, how much research do we really need to do when it could be
Right.
people right
It's
now?
they're
But
doing it right now. It's right there. They're writing it down. Right. I know, but they're
yeah,
like, no, but we didn't write it down.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But could you tell me a little bit about the iboga and ibogaine? I kind of thought they were the same, but
Mhm.
but but
Yeah,
but
yeah,
there's
yeah.
it's a root, right? Comes from Africa. It's a root, and then the journey's like 72 hours. I read.
It can
Yeah.
be.
No wonder. It's like, yo, after one of those, you'd be like, I'm good. I'm straight.
All right. Let me give you my opinion about iboga. Okay, so I've used iboga. Ibogaine is uh, is synthesized. I'm going to use the word synthesized, but I'm not a chemistry major, so that might be the wrong word. Ibogaine comes from iboga. Iboga is literally the root from a bush in the Gabon region of Africa. And you can do an internet search for the Gabon region and hear about how folks are trying to not completely decimate that part of the world for this drug, because I think it takes like years for the plant to
Mm,
mature and things of that sort. And I'm pretty sure people are working on a man-made version of the
yep.
chemical too. So iboga is a very long journey.
Mm,
It's easily 8 to 10 hours of the actual journey. And then it's very often challenging to go to sleep. So what happens is you do an iboga journey at night, and then the next day you're kind of laying around, depending on how intense the journey was. Da, da, da. I totally took advantage. I laid around the whole next day. I was actively integrating. I loved it.
mm,
Iboga is like you're on a you're on a roller coaster. You've Let me rephrase it. Iboga is a roller coaster with a power washer at the front blasting through your brain the first time. It's very, very powerful.
mm,
It's it can be incredibly disruptive. You see a lot of extra memories that you don't need anymore. It's almost like flipping cards, and you're like, "What's going on?" And the medicine is actually getting rid of the old dendrites that you don't need anymore. But that can be a little disruptive if you don't really know what that is. And then you can talk to that medicine. So very often I talk about the idea of navigating your psychedelic experience. If you're going to go into a pool, you're going to be able to navigate 3 feet of water, 4 feet of water, 5 feet of water. You might not be able to navigate 20 feet of water in a choppy sea, right?
mm,
So you take an appropriate dose and you navigate it. And iboga is one of those medicines that you can ask it questions. Why am I feeling this way? why am I acting this way? Da, da, da. And it might take an hour or so, but it's very often going to give you either the childhood memory or the answer or things of that sort. The more, in my opinion, the more you do iboga and the more you work on your trauma, the more boring the journeys get. I've heard people who are like masters at meditation, and they're like, yeah, iboga is just, 8 hours of meditation. It's not dramatic, it's not disruptive. So what I tend to see is if you've got a lot of stuff going, like I would never have done iboga in a PTSD crisis. It would be so scary, so disruptive, it would be too much. It would be like jumping into that ocean. But I kind of had my stuff together and I knew what I wanted to work on. And it can be incredibly powerful. It's also got a lot of, I don't understand any of this part. It's being studied for TBIs, it's being studied for Parkinson's, it's being studied a lot for inflammation. And I know I had a hip problem because of menopause. I don't know how, but after 2 iboga journeys specifically, I no longer had that hip pain.
Incredible.
So there's so much research we can be doing about iboga. Here's the thing though, it is not recreational. You have to get screened with your heart and your liver. It can kill you. Okay? Everybody understand that it can kill you. If you're going to go work with iboga, it has to be in a medically supervised thing. This is not recreational. And that's how I did it. Every time I did it, there was a doctor.
Right. And some things that I've learned, yeah, it's super powerful. Yeah. But now let's talk a bit about psilocybin, if you don't mind, because I know with psilocybin or magic mushrooms or mushies, got all kind of words, I had learned that you could eat your body weight in
And not, yeah.
psilocybin and you'd be fine. You'd go really high, but yeah.
Don't do that,
Yeah,
people.
don't do that. Yes, please. That's disclaimer here. Yeah, let's not do that. But
Yeah,
but
there's that was funny. There's a chart in terms of dangerous substances, and I'm forgetting who the person is. Person got fired from the government for putting this chart together. Things like alcohol, and they had this chart in terms of the health profile, and alcohol was off the chart in terms of not being healthy, and psilocybin was like down here, like mushrooms on the scale of all the substances, really healthy. I don't think there's ever been any recorded overdose death of mushrooms.
right.
Can you feel like you're going crazy and you're going to lose your mind if you take too many mushrooms?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dose is important. But yeah, that's why most of your psychedelic retreats are psilocybin based, because it has a much
Yeah.
healthier.
It's more, yeah. You could get up and go to the bathroom as opposed to something like ayahuasca. It's quite intense, it's heavy, and like wherever you're sitting, that's where you're gonna be for a while. You're not gonna be
Yes.
going to the
Same with
bathroom. You
iboga.
might right. Yeah, yeah. It's quite intense. But
Yeah.
psilocybin, I know that Terence McKenna speaks famously about the heroic dose, which was like 5 grams. But then another guy stepped on the scene, and his name was Baba Kalindi.
Okay.
And he was the one who was saying, 5 grams, I do 30, I do 40 grams of, yeah, he
We
puts
can
them like,
talk about that.
yeah, like these super high doses. Like he says, you fill up a bottle, like a 64 ounce with some water, and you swish it and you get it down. And if you purge some, you drink more. And like you go to these really high realms. But then I've also learned in some of my studies that a lot of the information that you get wherever you're going there, it's not really practical to be used here in this world.
So a couple of things. The same way that dosage matters in terms of your body weight, that matters in terms of what the substance is. So you know how you would go get you can just go to the drugstore and get an over-the-counter painkiller, which is at a certain level. You can also get a prescription painkiller that's at a way different level. Different kinds of mushrooms have different levels of they're more potent. There's a term for you. So different
Mhm,
mushrooms have different potency. So
mhm,
that's number one. So when he says 30 grams, is he
mhm,
what strain of mushroom is he talking about?
mhm,
Number two, our age matters. I know I can handle 5 grams way easier now than I could when I was younger because my brain is older. It takes more stuff.
mhm. Right,
So when you get older, it's not a
mhm,
completely inappropriate idea that you might need more for whatever
mhm,
reason.
mhm,
If you've been on SSRIs and some of your receptors are kind of sluggish,
mhm,
you might need more. And that's very often where I've heard of people going to a psychedelic retreat and, 7 or 8 grams, they're not feeling anything. They need 12. And when you actually ask them their history, they were on an antidepressant for 10 years.
mhm. Yep. Mhm,
So there's when you hear those numbers, the same way you would think about a prescription painkiller versus an over-the-counter painkiller is the same
mhm,
way to think about it. How old is the person? What was
mhm,
their history? What are they actually taking? Um,
mhm.
and I cannot stress enough, there is zero bragging rights in I
Mm,
took XYZ. You
mhm.
know where the bragging rights are?
Mhm.
I had a journey and I healed some childhood stuff, and I no
Mhm.
longer act against my best
Right.
interests.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
brag.
That's where the money's at. Yeah. Less is more. You get to meditate and stay with some of these things, especially when it's something like psilocybin that's much more manageable, like these really high doses. You could, but I mean,
It
four
might
and
not
five
really be a lot of
grand,
fun.
right, might not be a lot of fun. Yeah. I mean, 5, 6, 7 grams, that's really up. And I've seen people handle those things well, and that's where they're at, and that's them. I'm not going You don't follow a guy, down the river every time, or if he's surfing the big waves, you don't surf those waves, man. Why would you want? You might want to stay over here with yeah,
Do you wanna be
the
able to drive the car, or do you want
yeah,
the car to be out of your control?
yeah, right, right, exactly.
I like to drive the car.
I like to drive the car too. Exactly. All right, so we're coming up on the hour, and I want to be able to fit us into all of this here and market everything that you're saying and doing because people need to find you
Oh,
and find this information also, right? But if people do want to find you and they say, "Man, I got some questions, man. Where can I find that Jill?" So
yeah,
let us know. Where's that? Where would
yeah.
that be?
So I titled my company The Journey Sage because I started my career as a teacher, and that's how I consider myself. So I help people understand the whole journey. So my company is The Journey Sage. That's my website. That's my YouTube channel. I actually now have a newsletter. I'm horrendous with doing it every week, but I'm trying. And that's basically I have a little thing on the top of my website for like, are we a good fit? Most of the time people are like, hey, I just have like 5 questions, and that's fine. I have zero problem doing that. People are finding the YouTube channel to be helpful too, but basically Journey Sage, Jill Sitnick, feel free.
Okay, and you spoke about a book as well.
Oh, well, so my memoir, Rescuing Jill,
Mm,
is the story of those 3 journeys written as much as possible like in the moment. And so people who've experienced child abuse,
mm,
they get the book. They
mm,
get it. It's like, "Oh my
mm,
gosh, somebody really put into words my experience." If you haven't experienced child abuse,
mm,
you're kinda like, "Boy, she talks about her father a lot."
right, right.
So, it isn't so much like, this is how the medicine works. It's much more, this is how the medicine worked with someone healing childhood trauma, and you're in the trenches with her as she does it.
I love it. I love it. We're going to leave all that information in the show notes.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming on again. And I'd love to have you.
Anytime.
Yeah, we're going to check in with you soon again, see where
Yeah.
you're at. Okay. So stay right there. Okay, family. Thank you for tapping in. See you soon.